Finally got the last piece that we needed. This is the Aeromotive fuel tank, and it is nothing more than a stock replacement fuel tank. You can see that that has been modified and assembled at Aeromotive with their pump sending unit, and of course where the inlet and the outlet are on this. And the reason that I went with the Aeromotive and paid for this rather than going with a Holley stainless tank, which is just a few $100s more than this, Aeromotive's got a good reputation, and this is a nice feature right here. So you can still access the pump to replace it. It's got a full baffle inside of here that they've actually got a patented little bucket that's in there that holds the fuel in. The pump is surrounded by foam. There's a good cutout view of this if you want to go to Aeromotive's fuel website. Aeromotive's website that shows how they do this. The return line also comes back up through here and goes inside of that bucket. So the return's always feeding. There's always fuel feeding back into the bucket that's in there, which is kind of nice. The other sexy part about it that I was just talking about here is quite simply your outlet and return are right here. So it makes it easier access. You don't have fuel lines in the trunk, but you can still access the fuel pump. Aeromotive has a reputation for making high quality stuff. They make it right here. I had a hard time getting a hold of this tank. Speedway at this current time, and this is the beginning of May, Speedway has some of these in stock. Summit does not. Aeromotive does not. There's a few. There was about 5 other places I called, and I figured I wasn't going to be able to find one. Summit was telling me May 9th. I called up Speedway, and they said, we've got it, and they shipped it out of their Phoenix warehouse, and I had it the next day. So we are going to this tank because I need a return style for the port injection. Holley said I didn't have to. I'm not happy with the fuel pressure swings that I'm seeing. I actually did an experimentation video that I haven't posted, and I don't know that I'm going to. Maybe I will, where I added a return line, temporary return line, to the internally regulated setup. And it actually worked very well. The fuel pressure was more consistent. It was, pretty definitive. It was more of an experiment to see what happens if there's a regulator in the tank and I regulated at the unit. Well, quite simply, this regulator stayed closed. I kind of anticipated that it would. I didn't drive the car because I had it temped in, but I did play around with it. Maybe I'll post that video at some point. But anyways, that's just another part, the last part. The updates are Jeff has the head ported right now. He's putting a little bit larger valves in it to compensate for kind of some rough, I'd call it some rough work that was done by whoever machined the heads. It is a first generation vintage inline's head, and there's just some issues. The valve seats are a little too far sunken in. It's just not, I think Matt Cox just kind of had whoever he could get machine them, and it wasn't, it's less than optimal. I've got some pictures of them. Maybe I'll insert them right here. So anyways, Jeff's working on the head. It shouldn't be too much longer. I shipped him the fuel rail and the rest of the parts. So I have everything that I need that I know about right now. Of course, when we get the engine halfway in at 2 a.m., there's going to be one of those emergency Summit orders, but that's just bound to happen. So anyways, just wanted to show off the Aeromotive tank. If I didn't mention it, this has a 200 liter per hour pump in it. They also offer a 300 or a 340, I think it is. I think Aaron Cox just put one in his car. And he says it's dead silent, which is fantastic because of the way that it's not only in the tank where the pump belongs, but it's also shrouded in that bucket like I was talking about. So I think this is a really good option. I wish that they did offer it in stainless. That would be nice. But, as long as you drive it and you're constantly, refueling it, as long as you don't let ethanol fuel sit in here for a year, it won't rust. So, all right, that's enough rambling. And just doing a little prep work here. I'm setting up the regulator because that'll get installed with the tank. The 12-879, which is what this is, regulator, comes with the second spring. I didn't realize you have to change the spring if you want 16 to 65 psi. So what this says right here is 4 to 15. The spring that's in here is good. If you want 16 to 65 psi, it comes with the second spring. So really easy. You just take these 4 screws out. Just wanted to note that for anybody that's using one of these regulators. I had mentioned to John that the regulator had a really wide range, and he was surprised at that. And now we know why. They give you another spring. Well, this video is quickly morphing into, what is it, part 3? I'm starting to lose track. We're going to get the fuel pressure regulator mounted. That way, when we go to attack the tank, we're ready to go. All we got to do is hook it up. Can't do it today. I'm going to need a full day when I can get to it to put the tank and the new line in. That's really what's going to take time, is putting the return line in, because there isn't one. So that's about where it's going to go, where those 2 yellow dots are. That's where the mount's going to be. So the way that this is going to work for right now, here's our main pressure coming out of the sniper, because we're going to hook this up with the sniper before we do the port injection. This is phase 1. Ooh, phase 1. This, I'm going to remove the internal regulator from the sniper, where it is over here. Let's get around to it so you guys can see. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to take this cap off. I'm going to take the diaphragm out of there, and I'm going to close this back up. This just has an O-ring that seals this cap under here. It's real hard to see. That way your line pressure comes through, right? We're coming out of our fuel pulse damper that we have. It's going to be full pressure coming out here. We have it's going to come into the regulator here. And this is what regulates the pressure down right here. So anyways, I'm going to get this all laid in there right now, and I'm going to put some riv nuts in the firewall. Riv nuts, I've used them on the channel before, I think. This is installed with a riv nut. It's basically a rivet nut. So they call them riv nuts. That's a trade name for them. And it rivets into the firewall, and then you've got a threaded insert. So that's where it's going to sit, and let's show you what it looks like so we can drag this video out as long as possible and get people complaining in the comments about 10 minutes have gone by and you just started working. Yeah, well, that's how I work. If you guys don't like it, find another channel. All right, so this is going to go right there. Okay. So then I can still get to it to adjust it there. It'll sit a little bit lower because it's sitting on top of the bolts right now, but I'll still be able to get to it, adjust it. The line's going to come out, go that way, and head over to a 45 fitting that I've got to go into the sniper. And then the return line goes straight down, and it'll head off over the top of the bell housing down there, and over to the return, which is going to be somewhere probably on the other side of the kickdown rod, on the back side of the kickdown rod maybe. Then when we go to put the port injection in, all I'm going to have to do is change this fitting here. I'll probably change this to a 90 and come straight into the fuel rail with just a little piece of hose. And while we're on the subject of rivet nuts, they come in a few different flavors. These are aluminum ones that have a sealant on them. They probably make steel ones that have a sealant on them too. They make different depths. This is a 1/4-20. This one's a little bit deeper. It's for thicker metals. You know, if you got a thicker piece of steel that's going through, this is good for, like, 3/16 or maybe even up to 1/4. We're going to use the ones, I'm running actually a little bit low on my 1/4-inch stash, but we're going to use these right here. These pretty much do anything from thin sheet metal up, 16 gauge up in size. So pretty easy to do. I think I've shown them before, so we'll put 2 of those in there. So I want to take the time to clear something up right now too, although this probably won't get as many views as some videos, so people may not hear it. But this is a Teach to Fish channel. This is not a I fish and you now have the answer, or you now have the fish channel. We don't do that here. I'm getting a lot of comments, You could have just given me the answer. Yeah, I don't do that. You want that? You want to get the answer? Go find another channel. There's tons of channels that have the answer and never show you how we got the question or how we answered the question. So if you want that, go somewhere else. I'm not in this to get viewers or subscribers or whatever. I don't give a shit about that, to be quite frank. I'm here to document stuff for people that actually want to learn how to do this. So on the proportioning valve video that's got 90,000 views or whatever it is, when I get people saying you could have just showed me to reset it, show me how to reset it. No, I'm explaining how the damn valve works so that you understand. If you don't care about that, go find somebody else, because I don't have patience for it. So anyways, we got the regulator installed here. The gauge just barely fits, but it does have enough clearance. So I was able to put the gauge back here. We'll have both, you know. I did remove the regulator. There is an outside O-ring here. I probably should have shown that, but it's pretty basic. Take these 4 screws out of here, and there's an O-ring that seals the outside. Here are the components that are inside. This is the regulator. If you've never seen the Sniper regulator before, this is it. When I pulled it out, the O-ring did stay in the unit, so just be cautious of that. I had to pull it out with a needle nose plier and put it on the regulator. There's also this piece on the cap side over here. That pushes up against this regulator like that, okay? So make sure you remove that. You don't want that floating around in there because we don't need it. We just want to make this a pass-through. So we've removed the regulator. This is essentially a bare fuel rail now, where we're going to have 60 PSI all the way through here, all the way over to the regulator, okay? So our 60 PSI goes to the regulator, and then it regulates out to maintain 60. So I just want to be clear on that. We do not need to hook up the vacuum line. If I didn't mention that before, that's for boost only. We don't need that here. It's just going to be set at 60. So this is all tightened up now. So the only thing that's left is to put the new aluminum line in all the way to the back and put the new tank in it. I'm working on the tank right now. And here's what we're working on right now. We've got the positive, negative, and the sending unit wire kind of neatly done up right here. I thought I had some weather pack connectors lying around, and I don't. I don't have the right ones for 12 gauge, so I ordered those up from McMaster-Carr. If you're wondering, McMaster-Carr does stock the actual Delphi Metropack and weather pack connectors. So they're the real deal. They're not the Chinese crap that Amazon has. Don't buy that stuff. I shouldn't say that. The Chinese ones are good for something that carries no current, and you're probably never going to take it apart. Those ones will work okay, but not when you're talking about 15 amps. You want something that's going to hold together. So I've got that coming, and the reason that I'm doing that is because if you go back to the original, the OG video of the Sniper 1100 install, you'll remember I put in a 4-pin weather pack connector here because that matched up with the 12-305 pump setup that's currently in the car. Well, little did I know in the future, it's working out for me quite well. I'm just going to put the same connector here. I'll be able to unplug the old tank, leave the lead on the 12-305, or yeah, I think it's 12-305 pump setup for the next person that I'll inevitably sell it to. Somebody will want it. I won't have to do anything but unplug it from the car, and I can just drop this new tank in, and we can just plug it in. So that's going to be slick. And then all we got to do is just get the aluminum line. This is the aluminum line. I've already double flared. What I do is I just use the double flare, but I don't actually double flare it. I use the mandrel to bend the outside of this. So now we've got a nice lip for the fuel line. So I did one side already. This stuff's easy to bend. We'll get this bent and put it in the car. So this weekend, when we can get underneath it, we'll bend this all up under the car, use some nice P-clips to attach it to probably the existing line next to it. They're rubber isolated, so we're not putting stainless and aluminum together, make a battery. We don't want to do that. We use those isolated rubber guys, get that up to the front, drop this tank in. I mean, this should just be a slam dunk. It should be very easy. Got our 290s here. One of those will go to the line that's already in the car. The other one will go to this aluminum line. So the hardest part is putting this aluminum line in, and that's just bending it and getting it situated. We're not going to shoot a whole lot of video today because, quite frankly, I'm not feeling great. So we get the old tank out. I'm getting the aluminum line laid out here, and this is going to be the hardest part. It's just laying it in there and bending it to the right shape to kind of match the old line, and we'll attach it with some P-clips. I'll show you what it looks like afterwards, but once we get that in there, the rest is a piece of cake. You know, it took me 5 minutes to get the old tank out. So anyways, this will be something that I'll probably sell. Like I said, I'm not going to shoot a lot of video today, and I didn't. So we got the new tank in, got the fittings all made up, got the return line installed. Since there is no muffler here anymore, which that's where the original muffler was, there's no reason that return line can't just go all the way up, tuck up nice in there. So you see it's got some nice P-clips in it. And I just followed the original line. I got it all plumbed up here. So I've just got to plumb the regulator to the other end of the return line, and we can pressure test this thing. So just, you know, an hour and a half's worth of work just fighting getting the return line in here. You know, you got to get it around all this stuff. It's a little easier when it's aluminum because you can just kind of bend it around the way that you want it. So it's in. All right, we got 5 gallons in the tank, added from our California Safe gas can that costs $30. Gotta love it. So 5 gallons in the tank. We're going to check fuel pressure now. I don't see any leaks. We got under here and we looked. Doesn't look like the locking ring's leaking or anything. You know, nothing, you know, gravity speaking, there's no leaks. So let's take a look under the hood. I've got my handy little jumper cable. I use this for draining the tank, by the way. I use the old pump to pump it all out. So we're going to adjust that fuel pressure. Then we're just going to run it manually. That way I can kind of run it as long as I want. So we'll pull the relay out, and you guys will forgive me. I'm doing this one-handed. Okay. We're going to get this on one side of the relay there. And, well, of course not the relay. This should run the pump. And I do hear it running, and I do see pressure. So it's bypassing at about 20, so I need to adjust it. But before we do that, let's check and make sure we don't have any leaks anywhere. And of course I am going to have to adjust that pressure up quite a bit. That's to be expected. I don't see any leaks here. Of course at 20 psi we might not see any. And I don't see any leaks here. What I will say is this pump is silent. Just totally silent when it's running there. All right, let's adjust that pressure. Boy, is that thing silent. Now, tightening this regulator, you'll see I already adjusted it some, is going to make the pressure go up. So watch as I tighten this. See how the pressure goes up? We're up at 40. It's a little bit difficult to get to here where I located the regulator, but you know, it's kind of a set it and forget it kind of a thing. All right, that's 45 or so. Sorry, shaky cam, tight spaces. We're just letting the pump run right now. Like I said, you just got it hot wired. Otherwise, you'd never get it adjusted. Try to do this with gloves on. It's just impossible. Come on. All right, hang on a minute. I just needed 2 hands. So, yep, we're on 60 at the regulator, and I did leave the gauge over on the other side of the rail here. And we're dead nuts on 60, so we should be ready to run. We're just going to check for leaks one more time. All right, so we checked for leaks. Everything looks good. Let's watch the fuel gauge. I'm very curious. It should show about 1/4 of a tank. It's got 5 gallons in it. Technically speaking, it should be just under 1/4 of a tank. Let's see if the fuel pump runs. God, it's quiet. So much more quiet than the Holley one. Now that's interesting. The gauge is reading empty. We might have something not hooked up right. I'm going to have to verify my wiring here real quick. All right, well, I took a look at it, and then the sending unit's reading open, and I checked it on the bench before I installed it, and it was good. So something happened during install where the sending unit's just completely reading open between ground and the terminal. So I don't know. I'm going to have to figure that out. I might have to take the module out of the top of the tank. But let's see if this thing runs now with this fuel pressure set up the way that it is. There it goes. And it's in closed loop. Everything looks good there. And the fuel pressure still looks good. Looks good there. So just a tad high, probably because the pump's running a little bit faster. But that's okay. All right, well, let's let it warm up. I had to grab the phone and start recording. It was reading open. I pumped most of the fuel out of the tank, and now it's reading 72 ohms. So I'm gonna pour some fuel back into it. Let's see when it stops reading. Okay, so we're filling it back up. That resistance should start going down. There we go, it's starting to float. Let's see when it goes open, or if it goes open. Yep, there it goes, it just went open. Yeah, something's floating. Something's definitely floating inside the tank. So I just started pumping it back out and it started reading again. So I was talking with John, and he's absolutely right. The wiper's probably got a break in it somewhere in the halfway point. So it's probably a bad sending unit. We're gonna pull it apart and see if we can figure it out. But you can see we're pumping it out and it's reading in the bottom half. So once again, master airplane mechanic John is right. If I move the arm back and forth, it reads. So I'm thinking maybe I can fix this if I could just bend the arm a little bit. You see it's reading perfectly. It should go all the way up to 10, yep. All the way down to 70. So that's me pushing it one direction. If I pull it away, that's it, it's dead. So John was spot on. He said that's why it passed the bench test when I checked it originally. So let me see if I can tweak this, because getting this apart is not easy. So I'm going to play around with it. So here it is, and it's very hard to see. Let me see if I can zoom this thing. See the wiper down there? Come on, focus. Yeah, it's not going to focus probably, but oh, there it is. That wiper doesn't have enough pressure on the resistor. We're going to try and bend that tab a little bit in here and see if I can get it to work reliably. But taking this completely out of here is very difficult. It's hard to show the way that it's installed, but I have to take the whole pump module apart and everything. I think I might be able to get it though. Well, I got it out. I'm sure not the way it was designed to be taken out, but I got it out. So I'm gonna have a fun time putting it back together, but that's okay. Here's the problem. Right here. This is the problem. And it's just lifting right off of there. So we're gonna find a way to tighten this up. You could see this thing got tweaked when they had set it and adjusted it. So let me see how I can bend this to make it work. So I can see exactly what happened here. When they tightened down the screws on the adjuster, it pulled this steel backing plate away, which is what keeps spring pressure up, and that's why it's not working. So it's just kind of cheesy, crappy design. So I'll probably take the screws off. I already scribed some lines on here so I know where it goes. I'm gonna take it apart. I'm gonna bend it back and maybe put some washers in there to keep that from bending again. All right, not working in the best conditions here, but I'm trying to get it all in frame. And if I hold this in the orientation it would be in, hopefully you can see the meter. This is 70, this is 10 right about here, okay? And I'm pushing outward pressure on it. There's a spot I might have nicked on it right there. I'm not sure. It looked a little jumpy, but yeah, right there. But, you know, it's just one little spot. But that's 10 ohms right there, and I'm pushing outward on it. So, you know, normal pressure, there's not even a glitch in it. So, and I was pushing on it pretty good. So 70, 10, outward pressure, inward pressure. So it's inward, that's outward. There, it went open right there. So maybe it needs to be bent a little bit more. Yeah, it's not quite good, but I'm pushing on it pretty hard though. Yeah, I think we're in good shape here because it's not gonna, I'm putting a little bit of pressure on it there. Yeah, I may need to look at this again. All right, I got it working pretty good. And you know how I tightened it up just a little bit more? Remember I said I was going to put washers in here to space this out so it doesn't pull this bracket away and bend this open more. I was able to use a screwdriver and just pry these tabs up just a little bit more. That got us a little bit more spring pressure on it, so we're good now. It reads a full sweep even if I push on the arm, you know. So I think we're in good shape. I think it's time to put this back together. All right, it's back together. Seriously, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do is getting that sock that's in there in these Aeromotive tanks, the bucket that the pump sits in, situated, because it came all apart. So let's dump some fuel in here and let's see if the level changes. So we're at 72 ohms, basically empty reading. 73 ohms is empty. This is going very slow with these California compliant 5-gallon jugs, so it's going to take a gallon or two before it starts reading. Come on. This is going so slow. There we go. Oh, my meter turned off, of course. Timed out. Okay. So far, so good. God, these tanks suck. Anybody that doesn't live in California want to send me some decent 5-gallon tanks? So far, we're looking pretty good, though. We'll do a little math when we get done with this. I'll dump 5 gallons in, and we'll scale that to the 73 to 10, and we'll see where that puts us. So we're just about 5 gallons in here. So let's think about that for a second. We could probably do this without even figuring anything. It's 5 gallons, okay? 5 gallons, it's a 16-gallon tank, 20, 40, 60. It's 60 ohms, right? 73, to call it 70 to 10 ohms is 60 ohms. I mean 20, 40, 60. That'd be a third, right? That'd be, let's see, 5, 10, 15. So 20 ohms should be about 5 gallons, isn't that right? Except this is a 16-gallon tank. So, all right, So sorry, somebody, one of my neighbors walked up. So let's see, 36 to 46, 46 to 56, 56 to 66. That'd be 30 ohms. So it's not, this doesn't sound like it's going to be very accurate to me, which doesn't surprise me. These darn things are never accurate, but at least it's working. Hopefully I did that math right in my head, but if 73 was empty and there's 60 ohms, 5 gallons should be about a third. So it would go from 73 to 63, 63 to 53 is what it should be reading right now. So I did a little bit of research on this, and I was very confused. I checked the level after I put 5 gallons in, and I was at 36 ohms, and I was very interested to find that it was at about just over a quarter of a tank, which sounds about right. It seemed like it was pretty close to me. 5 gallons should be just shy of a third, so it seemed like it was pretty close. I found this online before, I remember, and somebody actually checked this before, and I guess the value is not linear is what it seems. E could be anywhere between 65 and 80 ohms. We know it's about 73, but it could be the way that the sending unit is designed, but it looks to me like it's non-linear because they're saying half is about 20, quarters about 40. So it was reading just over a quarter at 36. So that sounds right to me. So it's probably not quite linear. Okay, so I actually dumped another 5 gallons into it. So it's got about 10 gallons in it, I'd say. There's 10 gallons total in the tank right now. So if my math is right, let's see, there's basically each 5 gallons is 1/3, just under that because it's a 16-gallon tank. But yeah, 5, 10, 15. So it should read 2/3 of a tank. I get the feeling, just based on what I've seen, it's going to read low, which is probably not, that's not a bad thing, because when it's on E, that means you've got some reserve left. Yeah, it's reading like what, 1/3 right now? It should be reading 2/3 if it's got 10 gallons in it. It's working its way up to a half. It takes a little bit for the gauge to warm up. Yeah, so when it's at 2/3, it's actually a half. So it reads a little bit low. That's not that big of a deal. At least it's working now. So yeah, it's basically hitting the halfway mark right now. Okay, well, it's not just good, it's good enough.